why Lucas with the powerlifting background has been able to, got that foundation of wide stance. There he is, he's back on. That foundation of wide stance is from powerlifting, from sumo deadlifts, from wide stance squats. I think is a reason why he's been able to progress so far with the sites, that he's got that big base. So yeah, when you're ready there, Mr. Lucas Aaron, we just did a little bit of warming it up. I'm ready to jump in with you and follow the journey here.
All right, cool. So yeah, like I was saying before we got cut off there, so what I'm going to take you through is what I would consider more of like a level 1 side split. We're going to spend some time warming up the hips. We're going to spend some time in some static stretches, talking about positioning, cueing, and intent behind the stretch. I'm going to be using my stopwatch, making sure that we're holding the stretch for the right amount of time. If I move out of a stretch to maybe look at the camera and get an idea of like what you're doing, because some of us are on the Zoom call right now, I might be able to provide some tips. We also have the Flexible Jeffrey Wolf on here. He's got his eyes on you too, so he might be providing some extra tips as well. For those of you that are participating through the Workplace live stream, what I would like to see from you is a nice screenshot of the session. So I'm still not coming through for Jer, but I'm coming through. Looks like your audio is connecting now. Is that good? Can you hear me good, brother? All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna start with a little hip warm up. And for hip warm up, we're just gonna start with some side to side squat movement. And what I want you to focus on here is not moving up and down. Okay, so as I go from side to side, I'm not gonna move up and down. I'm actually gonna stay in as low a position as I can. Go in as wide of a stance that feels comfortable for you to warm up, and just practice going side to side. Try to find a full knee extension if you can. If you watch me from the side, you can see that I'm quite upright, pulling the hips in, arching my lower back. My favorite way to warm up for side split, we're going to be getting into some horse stance holds, doing a couple variations of things I've been working on in horse stance, connecting the dots a little bit with what I've been working on with ATG and Keegan. We're going to experiment with a couple of different ideas in horse stance. I've shared some of it in the community. Now we're going to get into a standing pancake. So maybe the same stance you had for side to side, maybe a little bit wider. What we want you to do here is basically fold forward as if you're doing a pancake and try to find as deep of a position as you can. Okay, focus on here. Again, arch that lower back. Imagine you're doing a very solid pancake fold. If you're limited here, you can get the hands on the floor, but don't lose that solid locked knee position and that nice arch in the back, okay? We're not looking to really sacrifice a solid position around the back here as much as we want to take advantage of positioning and holding that stretch. Relax your breath here. A little deeper over time. You can reach through if you want to for that added support, or just stay in a comfortable position where we're still just warming up. One more minute. Maybe shuffle a bit wider. We're only doing one set of this. Feel the hamstrings open up a little bit more. Start thinking about that contraction. For standing pancake, we also don't want to be sitting too far back. Try to keep the hips stacked over the feet. The more that you can stack the hips over the feet, the more you'll feel it pull nice in the upper hamstrings. 20 seconds. Breathe relaxed. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, we're going to use our hands into the floor. We're going to slowly come out of that stretch. And we're going to find that side to side position again, maybe a little bit wider. And we're going to move side to side. Focus on how much more warmed up you are right now. Arch that lower back, pull that chest nice and tall, and just sink a little bit deeper. Five seconds. Stay tall. Hands coming down to the floor if you can. We're going to turn and bring ourselves down to a 90-90 position for a 90-90 stretch. So this is all about the angles. So look for that nice 90-degree angle in the front leg and try to find a nice 90-degree angle in the back. We're going to focus on our front leg first, that nice external rotation stretch. So try to bring the belly button right in line with your knee, and we can fold forward here and find a nice position we can hold. So we're going to hold this stretch. And what I like to do for the external rotation in the stretch, if you can get nice and deep here, you can grab the foot and you can actually use your arm and pull the foot up a little bit more, get a little deeper into that stretch. So I'm actively pulling my foot up as I fold forward. You're going to feel that a little bit deeper through the piriformis and the hips. We're holding this stretch for 2 minutes, 30 seconds in. So again, we're finding a static stretch. Find a position that you can hold. We don't want to be readjusting here at all. So within the first 30 seconds of your stretch, you should have a position that you can hold. We have 1 more minute left. No fidgeting around, no excessive movement. Hold that stretch, maybe go a little bit deeper, or also maybe just pull that foot up a little bit more. Still thinking about that arch, lower back arch. A lot of focus on lower back arch, anterior tilt, and side split session. 30 seconds left. Keep that belly button lined up with your femur. Internally torquing. Really looking to open up the glutes before we get into deep side split. Slowly come out of that stretch. We're going to move into our internal rotation stretch. So what we want to focus on here now, we're already set up for it, is we want to focus on sitting our glute down into the stretch. We should feel a little bit of a pulling into the upper hip socket, but we shouldn't be feeling any impingement. So if we're feeling impingement or anything like that, we can sit back a bit more, but I want you to focus on pulling the glute down to the floor. If you feel like having this leg bend is too much, we can come into a straight leg here. I still prefer to keep this leg straight as I get a little more range into the internal rotation stretch. We're holding this one for 2 minutes, so we want to be active here, not relaxed. So I want to feel like I'm sitting my glute down and I'm pressing my knee into the floor, pressing my heel and ankle into the floor. And as we hold that stretch, again, we don't want to be fidgeting and moving around a lot. We want to get deeper into this stretch. We want to stay static. Shouldn't be feeling any knee pain here. If you're feeling knee pain, you might be up too far forward or just in a position that's too aggressive too soon. So try to unload that hip, sit back, bring that glute down, lean back a little bit more so that you're not putting too much stress into the knee. 30 seconds. Keep that contraction. Keep that contraction. Think about sitting that glute down. 5, 4, 3, 2, good. We're gonna switch sides. So slowly moving out of that stretch position. Switching to 90-90 on the other side. Find that nice 90-degree angle with the front leg. Pull that hip socket in, okay? So we like to really drive it in before we go down in our external rotation stretch. Find 90-90 with the back leg. Pull the belly button into with the femur. Find a position that you can hold for the duration. We're doing a 2-minute stretch here. Keep that belly button pulled in. So like I was talking about on the other side, we can use our hand to just slowly lift this leg up, go a little bit deeper into external rotation if we can. If not, just relax and let that position settle into where you're at. So what I like to think about here while I'm holding this stretch as well is keeping that back glute flexed and extended forward while I'm holding that 90-90 position. So I'm not relaxing this back leg either. It's extending forward, keeping me even more active into this stretch. 1 more minute. Stay active in that stretch. Breathe calmly. No fidgeting, 30 seconds. Try to keep that back arch, lower back pulled in. Keep that extension. Ten seconds, hold that stretch. Okay, slowly come out of that position. Get ready for internal rotation of the other leg. So same thing as when we did internal rotation. On the other side, we're going to be looking at sitting that hip down, sitting the glute down. You can bring this leg out straight so you can relax a little deeper into that stretch. Find a position where there's no stress on the knee, and we can maintain an active contraction here, pressing down into the floor and sitting that hip back. Turn that chest forward, forward into the stretch, drop the glute down, leaning back more if you have to. Main goal here is to not move. Find that stretch, hold that stretch, don't readjust. So if you're 1 minute into a stretch and it feels too intense and you're adjusting too much, you've gone too far too quick. So learning to stretch properly is learning what position to be in, where you can hold for the right amount of duration. So we're 1 minute in the stretch now. I haven't moved. I may be able to start exploring with a deeper position, but I'm not going to sacrifice the stretch. We're still in our warm-up. We're going to use internal rotation stretch a few more times throughout the session as more of a recovery for the hips. So as we get into some of the big positions like horse stance and side split, we're going to come back to rest in internal rotation to basically create some structural balance in our session and let the hips relax out of external rotation. Keep that glute sitting down. 2 minutes is a long time if you haven't done it before. So you have to start practicing 2 to 3 minute window of holding a static stretch. Okay, we're coming out of that stretch slowly. Moving back to 90-90 on the other side. And what we're looking at doing here is going into our piriformis stretch. So from 90-90, find that nice line with your belly button lined up to the knee. You're going to lean forward as much as you can, and you're going to try to pull that back leg into a straight position. And in doing so, we're going to bring the belly button more to the center of the front leg. So there should be a nice 90-degree angle here. So we're not going to bring that leg straight and sit on that external rotation stretch anymore. Now we're actually going to lift the hip up, try to find a nice straight line, and we're holding that stretch there. If the front leg's not flat on the ground, that's okay. If we have a block, we can put it under, or if it just sits off the ground and you focus more on the line of your hips, then that's just as good. So now in piriformis stretch, we're going to be feeling it in the piriformis, but also through hip extension here. So I am in a position where I can have and warm up my hips. I can also curl my toes under and make that a bit more active in just flexing the quads, flexing the glutes. Pulls me into a stronger line. So I'm thinking about pulling my hip internally towards the front leg. So I don't want to be pulled this way, internally pull it into the front leg. I'm moving around a lot because I'm demonstrating some things, but you're holding the stretch, right? Holding that stretch. One more minute. Keep the glute fired in the back. You can relax that foot, you don't have to keep it active. As we get more relaxed in this stretch, we could think about going deeper with the upper body, coming more forward on the front leg. But again, we don't want to move in and out of that. So if I've made that move, and I'm now deeper in piriformis, I have to stay there, okay? I'm not going to get into the stretch the way I want if I go in and out and play with it too much. 3, 2, 1. So coming out of piriformis, we can just roll to the side, back to 90-90. And we can kick over to the other side. So from 90-90 again, find those nice lines that we had with the external rotation stretch for 90-90. Come forward so you can kick back, square the hips. Okay, so we're not sitting on the front hip. We're going to square the hips up. You can relax the back foot. Square the hips up as much as you can. Again, if the knee has to lift a little bit, that's fine. We're trying to keep the stretch on piriformis, and we also have a nice hip opener here through hip extension. Glutes contracted. 2-minute stretch. Find that position, hold that position. We aren't going to think about going deeper until at least a minute in. So a minute in now, we're going to start thinking about the possibilities we have to go deeper if we have them. If I'm going to go deeper, I've made that move. I can bring my upper body down, deeper into the stretch. I don't want to lose that internal torque, so I don't want the hip to roll out when I make that move. I want it to stay rolled in. Keep the back glute firing. And some people may call this a passive stretch, but if we're in position, we have right intent, we're actually not passive here. We should be actively contracting to hold the right position. If I was passive, I would be relaxed. I would be completely relaxed. I'd let my hip fold out. I would sit on the front leg. And holding the stretch correctly and having the right intent, we're actually not in a passive position. We're in an active position. Three, two, one. So now sit into that front leg. Push yourself up nice and slow coming into that stretch. So that's a good warm-up, level 1 side split. Some side-to-side squatting, some standing pancakes. Doing some 90-90 piriformis internal-external hip warm-up. Now we're going to get into more preparatory specific side split work. And I really like moving from a frog half split to then getting into some of the big positions like horse stance and side split specific isometrics. So we're going to start with frog. So in doing frog, and really if you think about the setup of frog, it's like, it's a side split position. If I can get into frog in an upright position, I mean, this would be basically a standing isometric position, but I'm on my knees. So it's like a kneeling side split. That's how you have to think about the setup of frog. We can start obviously here. It's easier to set up here. But what I want you to think about is the potential for you to be taller on this stretch. It's going to put more of a specific tension into the stretch and a specific intent. Now, this is where we get into what we want to have happen in the hips. What's going to be happening? How are we going to set our hips when we're in horse stance and when we're in our iso positions? This is where we think about all of those things. So I'm getting into my frog stretch. And only go as wide as you can put good resistance into the stretch. But I want to think about anteriorly tilting pelvis upward, arching my low back. Imagine you're doing a seated good morning, ATG style. So we have a serious arch in the low back. And that's where we're holding the stretch. We're now in a more specific adductor stretch where we can do some nice contractions, but we're going to hold the stretch first before we do that. So we're going to hold the stretch for a minute. The lines should be 90 degrees here, so I don't want this heel kicked in. I want my heel and knee lined up. And holding the stretch, you want to feel like you're trying to lift your knees off the ground and arch the lower back. That is the stretch. If you do it right, then you're not passive here. You're in a nice active position. Imagine you're trying to lift your knees off of the mat. So 1 minute into the stretch is when I like to explore a deeper range. For a frog stretch, I would explore that by getting taller. So I had a block here, so I'm getting my torso taller, but I'm not going to do that if I can't maintain those hip positions. So arch in the back, I can still pull my knees open, and I can still hold that position. Now we can do some contractions here. So I'm going to contract into the floor as if I'm trying to pull my knees together. And then I'm going to, I guess you could say relax, but actually imagine that you're trying to pull your knees apart. Okay, contract one more time. Approximately 10 seconds. It's almost like we're trying to slide our knees together, but keep that arch in your lower back. And then pull the knees apart. Keep that arch. Now we're going to come back down a little bit lower here. And the importance of knowing when we're low, it's easier. When we're tall, it's harder, is going to apply throughout the session. So I'm going to show you a horse stance variation that applies this. And then we're going to dive into the side split push-ups that Keegan and I have popularized in the real movement community as a way of unlocking the side split. Keegan really unlocked his side split this year through the side split push-up progression. Now we're doing the frog rock. So what we're looking to do here is actually arch further back into the stretch. And this is an action we're going to be doing a lot of as we go deeper. And then we come forward out of that. So it's like we're extending the hips, arching the back, flexing the hips. Extend the hips, arch the back, and flex the hips. It's basically a barbell squat, right? Extend the hips forward, arch the back, flex, flex, flex. Come a little deeper. Extend the hips forward, arch the back, flex the hips, flex, 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 hold, and then we're going to come out of that. So we're going to extend the hips all the way to that stretch. Bring the legs, feet together. Relax a little bit here. Now we're going to get into half split. So half split now allows us to focus on opening up the straight leg. So the straight leg, abduction, adduction. Going to play around a little bit here with some agonist contractions. So what I want to focus on here is first holding the stretch. So it's basically frog stretch with one straight leg. So we have that same position with the bent kneeling leg. So my knee is rolled out, my heel is lined up under my knee, and for my straight leg, I really want to focus on keeping it lined up with my knee. So I don't want to be too far forward or sliding way back here. Those lines are most important. So as I slide, I'm not going to slide with just the leg. I want to slide as a unit. Okay? So I want you to find a position where you feel like you can hold the stretch. So I'm going to just kind of square myself up here and know that I'm going to hold the stretch for a minute first. And now we're being a little more specific with our straight leg. So my toe is turned inward towards the screen right now on my straight leg. So I'm not turning that toe outward. That's going to focus more on my hamstring. I'm going to pull in a little more so it's focusing on my groin. And our hip, they're set like they were on frog. So arch the back, flex the hips. My quads are tight. So this leg here, quad is tight. Arching the back, flexing the hips. So we're going to do some agonist contractions here. And how we're going to do that, I'm going to slide off of the stretch to the point where I can lift this leg. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use that strength to slide back, possibly a little bit deeper. Okay? Slide back in. Try to slowly slide back in and find that point. So notice how my torso is not moving, but that point where I can just lift the leg. Use that strength from lifting the leg to slide a bit deeper into that stretch. We're just going to do 35 more of these. That was a joke. One more. 1, 2, 3. Try not to lose my lines. That was the last one, so I actually want you to slide a little bit deeper. Use that strength to pull deep. Keep that arch in the lower back. And then come out of that stretch nice and slow. So that is the half split. We're going to go to the other leg now. I really like half split because you can add the agonist contractions now and fire your glutes, your glute med, when we get into horse stance and when we get into those big iso positions. We really are tight and we have that activation. We're ready for those big positions. So same thing as before. Find want to make sure you guys can see everything. Find that kneeling frog position on this leg. So it's half kneeling. And we're finding a position that we can hold first for that minute. Torso is square, so I'm not leaning away as I slide open. And as I slide to open, I'm keeping that arch, that anterior tilt, toes pointed towards the screen. Hold that stretch. Arch the back, flex the glutes. I want to feel like I'm trying to lift my leg off of the floor. That's the contraction I want the whole time here while keeping that stretch. Couple more seconds, and then we're going to do those agonist contractions. Okay, so we're going to slide, slide, slide out. Just to that point where we feel like we can lift the leg. 1, 2, 3. Use that strength to slide a little bit deeper. Arch the back. Open back up. Slide back in. Just to that point where you can lift. 1, 2, 3. Little cramping through the glutes is okay. Use that strength to pull a little deeper. Arch the back. Keep your intent, keep your quads flexed. One more, sliding out. Find that point you can lift. 1, 2, 3. Slide back out. That was our last one. Just slide a little deeper. Arch the back, arch, arch, arch. What you're noticing here is when I arch my back, I'm actually sliding more open. That's what we want to apply to all the big positions is I know I'm going to get deeper, not by pushing my leg out, but actually arching my back more. So I'm actually flexing the hip and my leg's going really deep. Come out of that nice and slow. So that is our specific prep work now. We're going to recover with some internal rotation stretch. I'm actually going to do my left leg first because it was the last one that was really in aggressive external rotation. This is more for recovery, so I'm way more relaxed here. I'm just bringing this knee down, more of a passive contraction. Still trying to sit the glutes down. But I'm just trying to recover that hip, about 30 seconds. Switching to the other side. Drop the knee, nice line, sit the glute down. Keep your chest squared up. Square your chest up with your knee in the front. Good, so that's our recovery. We're going to use internal rotation stretch to recover through exercises a few more times. So we have 2 sets of horse stance here. So we're going to get tall now. We're going to set up our horse stance. And for the second set, we're going to do that new variation I shared in the community, the horse stance good morning. But for our first one, we're just going to do a horse stance static hold. So for horse stance, feet are together. And we're going to be stepping out. Let's start with 3-step. And if you feel like, this is level 1. Let's just focus on 3-step. But if you guys are wondering, okay, when should I move on from 3-step to 5-step? A good predictor of that is that you're getting the hips parallel to the knees. And also it doesn't feel much harder than 7 out of 10. So it's heels first, right? So 1, toes, 2, heels, 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 3. Now I'm going to adjust my feet. And what do I want to do here? There's a couple of in-betweens, right? If I go really laterally with my feet, I won't get as much into the groin. I'll actually be able to sink a bit deeper into it and have it be more hip specific. But as I turn my feet in a little bit more, it becomes a little more groin specific. So coming down to hold this stretch, grab the floor with your feet. and apply what you just applied to half split and frog stretch. So all I'm thinking about here is staying tall and arching my back as much as possible. So the more that I arch my back, the more I should be able to feel the hips sit down a little further. So I said 5 minutes on this one, right? Hold this for 5. Thumbs up. Hopefully you guys don't believe me when I say that, but a good 2-minute stretch is good here. If we've gone too deep, we can just sit ourselves up. Also, if we feel like it's getting too hard with horse stance, bring your chest forward. Okay, so you'll notice that when you do that, you unload the stretch. So again, if you listened to my presentation yesterday, volume is key. So we don't want to be messing around in and out of horse stance because it's too hard. We want to know how we can be productive here. So if you have to unload, it's coming down this way. So keep that contraction. Legs are going outward, arching my back. I'm getting pretty low here now. 3, 2, 1, hands to the floor. That's the best way to exit that, okay? If we don't have weight. Come back down and recover with your internal rotation. So internal rotation recovery. Side splits is serious work. If you want side splits, consider the fact that I consider this level 1. I know we have an hour blocked off right now too, so I am giving you a few more static warm-ups, but if you are at level 1, you need to warm up more. You need to get the hips warmed up. If you're going to get into a nice end range position, and you're going to see what kind of potential you have, the warm-up that I just gave you is going to be more ideal for you. As you get a little higher up the chain in your progression, warm-up can be a little more straightforward. If you're doing strength training beforehand, there's ways that I like to do that. You can see that in the practical guide to splits on the RMU community. You can read. Keegan and I worked on that together. We bounced ideas back and forth off each other as to like how can we do side split, big stuff like this within a session. So a lot of plans came together with that. So we're coming back up to horse stance, and we're going to do that variation that I shared with the community. So this was more of like thinking about the side split push-up progression, thinking about what we're doing with seated good mornings, and just, in my mind, we're just going to do that in horse stance. And it makes the most sense because we're going to get really deep. So we're going to go back to 3-step. I'm standing sideways now because I want you to see what's happening. Okay? And we're going to come down nice and low. So we should feel like really opened up now. I can really arch my back here. And we're doing a good morning. This can be done with weight, but we're just going to do it with our body weight. So if you've done an ATG good morning before, same thing applies here. I'm going to be arching my back as much as possible. And in doing so, I should feel like I can let the hips pull in a bit more. Take advantage of that. When you come back up, sit down a little further, pull your knees open. That's 1. Chest forward, arch the back, arch. Imagine you're bringing your abs to the bench, ATG style, seated good morning. Pull up nice and tall, open the knees, sit down. 2. How many are we doing? 5? We're going to do 5. Pull those hips in, chest tall, sit down, arch, right? Arching, opening up the knees. Pull the hips in, abs to the bench. Pull back up, keeping that lower back arch. Keep that lower back arch. 1 more. Pull the hips in. Try to do that without pushing the hips back. Keep that arch. Back up. Nice and tall. Holding that last one for a 30 count. 1, 2. Knees are open. Feel low now. We're low. Low in the stretch. Aaron Weeb, are you counting? Arch that back, nice and tall. Grip the floor with the feet. Hands come to the floor. You can slowly unlock the knees. Come back down, internal rotation. So nice and passive here, we're just relaxing. Now we're gonna do our side split push-ups. So side split push-ups, if you've been doing the sprint, this is like the main progression we're using for side split. And the main, switch sides, the main cues here are very similar to what I just went over with the horse stance good mornings and with all the frog positions. So when we go down in our push-up, we're creating space to pull the hips in more. And in doing so, you should feel like you can open up the legs wider. When you come back up from your side split push-up, you want to hold the set position you created by unloading and going down. So I'm going to put my socks on, or you could use sliders because I like to take advantage of the surface on the side split push-ups to slide open more. Or you can have more traction and just hold a position like if you feel like you don't want to slide open too far. So like I said, when I come forward, I'm going to pull my hips in. And as I come up, I'm going to try to keep that. If I can keep that, I will go lower, okay? So this is an iso position. So find an iso position you can start with. As soon as you find an iso position you can start with that feels comfortable, we're going to start doing push-ups. So the push-up comes down, I'm pulling my hips in, flexing my quads, and I hold that. By holding that, I can strongly open my legs more. Pull the hips in. Hold it when you go down. Pull the hips in. Hold it and go down. Pull. Pull, pull, pull. Maybe sit back on it a bit more. Hold it when you go up. Going down. Pull the hips in. Maybe the glutes go back a bit. Remember the agonist activations. Think about pulling open with your glutes. Down. Up. Find a new range. Down. Up. Pull the hips in. Pull, pull, pull. Up. Down. Up. And we can come forward and slide through, or we can sit on our butts and go the other way. So I could also sit on my butt and bring my legs through. Internal rotation stretch. This is basically our finisher, but again, when I was talking in the presentation yesterday, big volume, big positions. We've warmed up. We've done some strength work with horse stance. Now we're doing some specific work, side split push-ups. If you go through the practical guide on the RMU, you'll see that I have other specific progressions. I didn't have it set up today because I didn't want to throw the flow off too much, but the other two progressions are based on strengthening your flexion and extension, which is basically what we're doing with side split push-ups. We have 2 more sets. Hopefully you guys are ready to find new depths. I want new depths here. Use your glutes. Your glutes pull your legs apart. So we're coming back down. Keep the chest down like you're in the bottom position of a side split so you can get nice and deep. Pull the hips in. Hold that position when you come up. Pull in. Hold it. Maybe you're going a little faster now, but don't rush it. Pull the glutes open. Pull. Pull the hips in. Keep it. Keep it. Down. Keep that position. Couple more. Okay. And now we can think about how we come out of it. We might sit our butts down. Slowly bring those legs together. So starting out, like really for this session, we are finding maybe a range right now that you haven't found before. So we're not going to hold it for too long because you're going to get extremely sore and get a lot of DOMs from it. But think about when I've gotten into that position that feels new, we're going to hold. So the prescription of your side split push-ups, I'm more open to keeping the volume there. So if you just have a running clock going and you're doing your side split push-ups and you feel like you found a new range, once you've found that new range, perform a static hold and try to keep yourself in that 2-minute window. So this also uses those buy-in methods that we talked about in phase 1 of weighted mobility, where we're basically using sets and reps to hold the position and get more volume in. This is our last set. I want you to think about doing that in this last set. I don't care how many reps you do. If you're doing more than 10 reps, it's a lot. But when you feel like you found a new range, get tall and try to get some time under tension there. So time under tension is pulling the legs open with the glutes, okay? Stay active. So here we go. Starting the clock, I'm coming down. You probably have a new range now. Pull the hips in and hold it. Find your new range. However many reps it takes to get there. And we're going to hold that range. You can hold it with your hands down. I like to squeeze my fists, drive them into my obliques. Makes me nice and strong. Keeps my hips pulled in. And come down. So that is the premise of a side split level 1 flow. I really hope you gain some perspectives on setting your hips. The most common thing people will say when they start the side split journey or when they start doing specific side split movements is that their hips are blocked. Most of the time, the blocking in the hips is because they haven't set the hips. So the horse stance allows you to set the hips and take from that what I was talking about the whole time. So setting our hips in side split is about pulling them in. Once my hips are pulled in, I want to maintain that. If I start going into deeper positions and I lose it because I don't have that strength through hip flexion, then yeah, I'm going to feel like my hips are blocked because I'm putting the stress in the wrong areas. So basically the principles of squatting apply to side split. The squat and the side split is just the widest squat you can obtain. It's like the lunge. The lunge and the front split, very similar. The longest lunge you can obtain is a front split. The widest squat you can obtain is a side split. So think about pelvic position in your squat. So we know that if we can maintain a decent anterior tilt, good pelvic position in our squat, we're going to be strong. If we can and we're setting the hips. So if you can maintain that in your side split positions and horse stance, you're set up for success, like gain train. Any questions? I haven't checked the community, but I'm more concerned about just seeing some screenshots of everyone in deeper side split ranges. So hopefully we see that. But yeah, any questions, drop them in the community. I've laid a lot of these thoughts out in Practical Guide to Splits on RMU. Jeff and I are diving really deep into range of strength certification together. So if you start taking the range of strength certification, you'll see with the range of strength program that's on ATG, you'll see a lot of those things kind of come together on how we created like a system. So yeah, drop questions. Love to chat about splits and range. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you're on the call right now, you're on live Zoom and you want to unmute and say a few things, that's cool too. I'm out of breath.
Like hell in some of those. Holy
What?
crap. That hurt like hell in some of those. Man, doing the half split with the liftoffs. Oh my gosh.
Those are game changer because you want to feel like that's how you're getting more open. So yeah, you set the hips, but that activation.
Yeah, I cramped really badly, but they were good. They were really good.
And then if you do that before you get into big positions like horse stance, side split, do that activation drill. You know, you're going to set yourself up for success. You can actually add weight to that too, like ankle weight, and really focus on that. Cause really that's the strength. The strength in the side split is your ability to open your legs wider, right? And you need that glute strength to do that. So like weak glutes, tight glutes, like if glutes are really tight, those are areas that you need to address too, because you won't have that potential to actually open your legs. It's also a block and pancake too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always thought of it as the strength being in your, in your groin in that area and keeping that all from ripping apart while you're spreading out. But yeah, that's good.
Good session, man. Cool. Is Keegs on? Keegs in a split right now.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, question. Would you do the side leg raises also standing from a box?
Yeah.
Like hip level?
Yep. I like that half split one because I can be just in a deeper range. Like if I'm on a box or if I'm standing, it's going to be like just super specific to the glute. But where I'm in that half kneeling split position, I'm like even more specific to side split.
Regarding the strength work and the middle split work, how much would you rest in between? Like 4 hours, 6 hours, morning, afternoon, or
between sessions?
Yeah.
I like 72 hours. I kind of like the idea of almost like a West Side barbell.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same.
I think it means like if you're training mobility and strength on the same day.
Yeah, that was my question.
Oh, okay. There's a couple different ways you could arrange that, and I tried to nail that in the practical splits course, because there's methods that I've used and I've had success with training it within a session. So, I mean, if we wanted to really go for side split, you can make it a lower body strength day. So a sumo squat, if you did do some traditional, you're basically doing strength work before you go into some end range specific ISO work. So if you go to that guide and you read the ebook, those were some thoughts that I put in there. Was basically like, this is how you can practically put splits into like normal, like kind of real movement style, traditional strength training. And that's what Keegan's been doing. So those thoughts came from Keegan and I brainstorming ideas and kind of bringing our thoughts together. And if you look at those sessions in the practical guide to splits, it's basically like what Keegan was doing with his splits training there is like within the session, he would set himself up for hitting splits at the end of the session.
Would you change that based on intensity of the strength session?
It's probably something to look at more individually. But yeah, like if you're going super max heavy squats, time and duration, like rest between before you go into it. I've done it. I've done my heavy squat days and splits together. But I mean, I kind of got myself to that point where I had those ranges unlocked. And I think Keegan was at that point too. Like, he got himself to pretty decent, close to calves to floor before he started thinking about like, okay, how can I maximize that time a little bit more? And we put some of those thoughts together in the range sprint. The range sprint is like flow-based range work. There's so many ways you can do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's like a lot about how much priority you have as well. Like Yura's a super strong guy, so it's not going to be as much of a strength stimulus for him because he's got crazy strong legs.
Yeah.
It's more about just taking that strength to the outer range. So I think like microdosing there, he's got a super strong nervous system, structural integrity. I think microdoses at the end of the session could be really, really effective for him, where someone who doesn't have that strength base, etc., or if it's your number one priority, like if you want to pick it up on the go without it being your number one priority, I would say like just pop it in at the end of your sessions and it's going to work. But then, if you want to get to really Lucas's level, or if you want to take it as far as you can, then you're going to have to put some more focus and more time and the static work and the antagonist activation. And, these are like the details to really be a master of it versus kind of just dabbling in it and taking it a lot further than your average Joe, which is probably where I'm at with it, where it's just like, it's a fun little extra thing, but it's not my passion. It's not a focus. It's just like, I just do a little bit at the end of sessions, is my, that's my routine with it. The range sprint, is an opportunity to focus. I do think you want to get to a good level and then you can maintain, for Lucas. I know he's had times where he hasn't done much on this, like even the head to toe, he hadn't done it for a long time. Maybe you want to touch on that, Lucas, but it's back within 2 weeks, because you've had it before. So it comes back, so it takes work to get it. And then it's, it's going to stay pretty much once you have it, you know that with strength as well, that with juggling, like, you just train the body to know it kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And, that was kind of the thing getting back into strength training. Like, I did take a lot of time getting into gymnastics and hand balancing and really working on range. And there was like this little bit of a block when I got back into some strength work, squatting and deadlifting. I was like, oh, I'm going to lose my range. But it was more about just like cutting it in half and just doing big positions, big volume. And like, I had the strength, I had the base. So it's been a nice transition. Feeling like, okay, well now you get to that point. When I started, I was broken and a mess, but I got that range and now I can play with so many different variables without losing that range. So taking the dive, it's a journey, but I think it's worth taking when you come back and you're able to explore so much more.
Love it.